गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गना शॉट। गना शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। जैसे 2023 खत्म हो रहा है और 2024 चालू होने वाला है चंद घंटों में, हम आज बात करेंगे इंडिया स्ट्रेटेजिक चॉइसेस के बारे में। और इस चीज के बारे में डिस्कस करने के लिए और हमें ज्ञान देने के लिए हमारे साथ हैं ब्रिगेडियर अरुण सहगल। Sir, good evening and welcome to Gunner Shot on the penultimate day of 2023.
Thank you. I am honored, sir.
Oh, thank you, sir. We
Absolutely
are
honored.
honored that you are here, and we're going to talk of India's strategic options and choices. If I'll just give a few opening things, and then you could take it where you want to go.
Okay.
We all know that India's economy is going well. We've navigated through the Ukraine war reasonably well. We have, through the Israel-Hamas war, though it has not touched our shores, we are so because we did make some statements that didn't go well with the, Middle Eastern powers initially well. But then we've done some recovery there, and we are doing a catwalk. But the problems in the South China Sea which are brewing up, with China becoming more belligerent in the Philippines, Taiwan elections coming up. There are about 40 odd countries which are going for elections in 2024, including our own, and major economies like USA going in for economy, for elections. And then we see off late कि ये Houthis ने attack भी कर दिया just out of our EEZ, and it's now confirmed they've done 2 attacks on us. When we all thought that 2023 was very good. Towards the end of the year, what do we see? हम देख रहे हैं कि चाइना यूएसए के साथ छुटपुट लड़ाई शुरू हो गया, पनून, निजर, बांग्लादेश इलेक्शंस वगैरह वगैरह वगैरह। एक नया एक्सिस बन रहा है रशिया, चाइना, ईरान, पाकिस्तान और नॉर्थ कोरिया का, जो हमारा विपरीत है, पर हम रशिया के साथ दोस्त हैं। उसके बाद हमारे इर्द गिर्द में देखेंगे तो मालदीव्स में प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, क्योंकि वहाँ का गवर्नमेंट जो है वो चाइना की ओर झुक रहा है। बांग्लादेश में इलेक्शन होने वाला है, उसका क्या असर नतीजा निकलेगा हमें पता नहीं है। और पाकिस्तान जो भी है, जो एक स्ट्रेटजी ऑपरेट कर रहा है इन JNK, ताकि वो JNK के इश्यू को रिवाइव करे एक दिन, और उसको लगातार तक द थिंग अबाउट ऑफिसर्स कैजुअलिटीज आर क्वाइट हाई। और चाइना जो है वो शेर बने जा रहा है, उसका इकोनॉमी डूब रहा है, पर ही इज फ्लेक्सिंग मसल्स ऑल राउंड। सो इन दिस आई थिंक इंडिया हैज to revisit its strategic options and choices. We have to rethink as to what we are. क्या हम ग्रेट पावर हैं, क्या हम वीक पावर हैं, या हम मिडिल पावर हैं? हम किस तरीके से किस ओर झुकेंगे? ये स्ट्रेटेजिक चॉइसेस जो है वो हमारे ऊपर in 2024 they'll be in front of us. So I would like you to explain all these issues and see what is it that we have to think of. Having taken a review of 23. So over to you.
Thank you, General Shankar. Thank you very much, sir, for once again giving me this opportunity. I will cover my remarks in 3 parts. In the first part, I will try and evaluate what is the middle power and where does India stands on the peg of what a middle power ought to be. The second, I will cover in brief. You have already mentioned a lot of things about India's in 2023, but my more focus part would be what happens, what can we expect in 2024, particularly what are our strategic choices. And this I will cover by looking at India from 3 concentric circles. The first circle will be our strategic neighborhood. The second circle will be our regional environment, and the third would be the global perspective. How do these things? So the whole idea would be from the closest to the farthest. How do we enmesh our strategic options and how are we strategically placed? Coming to what is a middle power? I have tried to, based on an excellent paper written by General Shankar and our earlier discussion, but I was very, I mean, hugely happy. I mean, I'm very glad to see the output that he had produced on what ought to be a middle power. So, what are the attributes of a middle power? The first attribute is strategic autonomy or non-alignment or non-involvement in bloc politics. That's the first one. Second is sufficient power and influence to shape regional discourses on its own or in support of other major powers. Third, desire derive their status based on what I call GET. GET is geography, economy, and technology. Fourth is how is the geostrategic location, his political leadership, and governing system operates, and its international standing and its international relationship. How does it subscribe to multipolarity, avoid unilateralism, and tends to state its choices? Is it a revisionist or a transformational? One of the essential elements of running a multilateral institutions is the role played by the middle powers. So, what kind of a connectivity does it provide, and what does the middle where does the middle power stand on this attribute? If I take these things into account, uh, India is a classic middle power. Is a non-aligned to any bloc. It straddles both the Western bloc, where it's a consequential partner of the United States. It has good relationship with the European Union, and in short, and also United States allies as part of quadrilateral in the Indo-Pacific. And as far as East is concerned, although we don't have a good relationship with China, but we have a strong trade relationship with China. But as far as Russia is concerned, we have a great degree of strategic convergence, as could be seen from the recent visit by our foreign minister, and it is attributed by special and privileged partnership. In addition, we are member of the SCO. We are also, whenever the RIC, that is Russia, India, China meetings are held at the leadership level, we take part. And we are also members of the BRICS, where the what we call as the Eastern Bloc is representative both Russia and China. What's our regional health and strategic equations? We're a member of Quad. We have a considerable influence in ASEAN. We are we are part of, and we have been instrumental in carving out a stable architecture in Arab and West Asia, Arab Peninsula and West Asia in terms of ITU2. Before the Hamas attacked Israel, we were on the course for developing an important economic corridor called the IMEC. We must also understand is that as far as the power dynamics are concerned, after China, we are the most consequential power in Asia. There is no other power which can come match us in terms of complete power and influence in this complete national power. India dominates the sea lines of the communication and is central to trade, maritime trade, which is 70% of the trade which supplies to the entire Indo-Pacific. We are the fifth largest economy. We are an emerging market, and we are becoming increasingly critical to the global supply chain management. Recently, a very senior member of a very major equity house said about investments. we were talking investments. What he said was interesting. He said, as far as India is concerned, stability in India is given. What we are looking for, in addition to India, are the alternative markets in ASEAN. Now, that is the uh, of appreciation or the kind of perception people have in terms of India. Global have, I told you, we straddle both the Eastern and the Western bloc. We had a successful holding of G20. We were successful in also inducting African Union as a member of the G20. We are creating an indigenous ecosystem, defense ecosystem, which will support us in the long run. We hope by 2047, India would have developed and evolved into a major defense economy. And our strategic autonomy is not in terms of that we are independent, we don't take. No. Our strategic economy is defined by our interest based perceptions of power and influence. We are an emerging technological power and key component of supply chains. We believe in multilateralism, we avoid unilateralism. We are not a status quo power, but yes, we do not want to be an imposer on anything. India does not look for any territorial aggrandizement on any domain. India is basically interested in ensuring that its own territorial sovereignty is maintained, and India is given the kind of, of status that it deserves, being the kind of power it is. Now, having seen that, now let me come to what happened in 2023. India's notable successes in 2023 are we held a successful G20. It was not easy to get that consensus statement. No doubt the Americans helped us. But it was also important for the United States also. Because India's holding of the G20 and the manner which we inducted the African Union as part of it, we provided for the first time after a long time a credible connectivity to the West, i.e., United States, to the global South. We have, apart from that, we have been an influential player of Quad. We have signed large number of FTAs. One of major FTA which we signed this last year was with Australia, and we are on the threshold of signing our first FTA with the European Union. With the United Kingdom. As far as the 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 conflict in Arab-Israeli conflict is concerned, that is a matter of concern for us for two reasons. One is that it is taking away the focus from the regional stability and economic growth that was being sought to be created as part of the IMEC and ITU2 connectivity initiatives, primarily to ensure that this region, which is energy rich, and energy is not going to go last, but becomes a new economic powerhouse, which can become integrated with India's growth potential, particularly as India is going to become a $5 to $6 trillion economy by the end of the decade. So for us, it's very important. But this has upset, this conflict has upset. But what is worrisome for India is this, that the conflict has shifted focus, and incrementally it is shifting focus from the Hamas Israeli conflict to what is now called the maritime trade in the Red Sea. Now, this is going to be a much bigger issue for India because rerouting of one container enhances the cost by about $1 million. So already if you, I'm sure you are, my listeners are aware of the fact, is that the basmati rice prices are going up, and so will tomorrow. There's a 2% increase even in the energy prices. So this will hurt India's economy, particularly coming at a time when we were on a path of growth and consistent GDP growth. So this is an issue that will bother us. We have deployed our ships. We are trying to create a certain degree of security architecture on our own and in concert with our other partners and players to ensure that the maritime trade is not disrupted. But this is an area of concern. As far as the Ukraine conflict, as far as our relationship with the big powers are concerned, I have mentioned United States is a consequential partner. We are having a reasonably good relations, despite what has happened in the Panun case, etc., etc. These are what they call ripples in the history of bilateral relations. They do not and they cannot derail such relationships. If we presume that they have the capacity to derailing of relationships, then I'm afraid we have to start re-looking at the sanctity of our relationship and whether it is worth even pursuing, because it's on such a narrow issue. If the relationship can get derailed, that's something a cause of concern. But in my personal opinion, that it will be a slow process, but we will overcome this, like something like what the Prime Minister said in the FT interview. The second issue is the relationship with Russia. Russia's relationship is very consequential. It's not only about military relationship. It's not only about oil, but Russia provides us, as as you would have noticed, that we have signed an economic agreement with the Central Asia Caucus. Now, TICA agreement is an important agreement, particularly to link ourselves with the Central Asia or the what they call the Asian heartland, Macinder's Asian heartland. And added to that, we have also attempted to strengthen the INSTC corridor, India North-South Trading Corridor, International North-South Trading Corridor, in which Iran becomes a partner. So, in short, what we have done is that we have created a new window of opportunity for us in Central Asia. We have enmeshed Iran into this, and enmeshing Iran and Russia together is important for us, primarily because, as the general rightly said, there is new axis which is emerging on our western front, and this axis compliance is is constituted by Russia, Iran, China, and in which Pakistan is also becoming a partner. So, if we are now becoming an important trade partner with Iran, we can be rest assured that it will help us to ensure that the credibility of the supply chains, particularly the energy sea lanes, are not disrupted. But there is, because this is an area, there's a very interesting article which come up just yesterday, which talks about that what is being laid through by Iran, Russia, and China is a great ensnaring strategy to push push the United States deeper and deeper into the crisis in the Middle East, and taking its energies, its capacities, and its diplomatic heft away from the Indo-Pacific. So that is where the situation like. As far as ASEAN is concerned, we are great ASEAN partners, and we are building up a relationship with ASEAN. We are particularly involved in building relationship with major ASEAN countries, Indonesia, Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia. We have a very good both economic as well as defense partnership with Philippines. So, and we are also cultivating our ties with Malaysia. So the idea basically is that we are having to ensure that ASEAN remains stable, it remains democratic, and the Chinese inroads or its gray zone tactics are contained and constrained, and there is and indicate to them there is a strong regional partner who has the capacity and capability to assist them in their security. So this is what the issue basically is. So this is what we happen. I do not think in the last year anything terrible that has happened apart from, of course, the media overplays these things. uh, yes, there is a new element. Sorry, I should have mentioned that there is a new element that is coming up, and that is when we see the writings of the G7 countries, particularly other than the United States. I see a sense of jealousy among some of them, and that jealousy is now being played up through the media. And the Western media is trying to expose India about its illiberalism. Illiberalism is becoming a new mantra by these people, little realizing what's happening in their own countries. So there is a stick is being created to belittle India or create a counter narrative or an informational narrative to bring India down. This is something we will have to be conscious about, and we need to be concerned about. I'll stop here and I'll wait for General's observations and comments before I go to my next question.
सो आपने जो भी बोला है मैं बिल्कुल वो सही सहमत हूँ आपसे कि इंडिया का जो राइज जो है वो कोई रोक नहीं सकता। और आपने जो बताया कि जो एनर्जी का जो प्राइस बढ़ रहे हैं क्योंकि ये रेड सी के ऊपर जो हौती का एक्शन की वजह से बाबल मंडप के ऊपर जो क्लोजर नहीं स्लो डाउन हुआ है वो उसके तात्पर्य our economy is a bit of a risk। पर मेरा मानना ये है कि हमारा जो एनर्जी जो मिलता है ज्यादातर आजकल रशिया से मिलता है और हौती लोग जो हैं एंड थ्रू ईरान मेरे ख्याल में रशियन एनर्जी लाइंस को रोक नहीं रहे हैं।
Yeah.
और हमारा एनर्जी बाकी खाड़ी देशों से जो मिलता है वो जो स्ट्रेट ऑफ हॉर्मुज से जो आ रहा है उसमें भी कोई रोक नहीं है। पर हमारा जो बाकी इंपोर्ट्स खास करके फर्टिलाइजर्स वगैरह के ऊपर वी विल हैव सम प्रॉब्लम्स। बट वो इकोनॉमी का जहां तक है मैं आई थिंक वील बी एबल टू टेक इट इन और स्ट्राइड। दो चीजें हैं जो मेरे को आई हैव इट इन माय माइंड। द फर्स्ट थिंग जो आपने भी बताया द नैरेटिव एंड द जेलसी ऑफ द वेस्टर्न पावर्स ऑफ अ राइजिंग इंडिया। क्योंकि आजकल इट इज नॉट ओनली अ मैटर ऑफ जेलसी एंड इलिबरल डेमोक्रेसी वगैरह वगैरह जो बोल रहे हैं। एक और चीज मैंने देखा 3-4 महीने पहले पीपल यूज्ड टू राइट अबाउट इंडिया बीइंग अ नेट सिक्योरिटी प्रोवाइडर इन इंडियन ओशन रीजन। आजकल वो बोल रहे हैं प्रेफरेंशियल सिक्योरिटी पार्टनर। इट इज एज इफ सम काइंड ऑफ अ डाउनग्रेड हैज हैपेंड and you take this alongside the other issue of illiberal democracy, then you know, okay, there is some rethink in the West. It's a matter of concern if this origin is from USA. That's the first part. दूसरा बात ये है कि I think going forward our relationship with Iran has to be focused on specific। मैं बताता हूँ क्यों। क्योंकि मेरा हिसाब के मुताबिक जो मैंने परसों ईरान के बारे में एक प्रोग्राम भी किया था उसमें साफ जाहिर होता है ईरान इज प्लेइंग अ मल्टी लेयर्ड गेम इन दिस होल एरिया। एक तो वो इसराइल के अगेंस्ट है, दूसरा वो सऊदी के अगेंस्ट है, तीसरा इट वांट्स टू गेन द लीडरशिप इन द इस्लामिक वर्ल्ड। And the effect of closing Bab al Mandab, or rather, putting problems in Bab al Mandab through Houthis, it also affects the Middle Eastern powers and the Gulf and the oil producing powers and the Islamic world. क्योंकि सुएज कनाल के अंदर जो ट्रैफिक है वो कम हो जाता है एंड इट अफेक्ट इजिप्ट। it affects Saudi Arabia, and it has started affecting us for whatever reasons. And that has to be resolved through Iran and Russia. And I'm sure China will not take a think twice before pressing its button with Iran to put a problem in India's doorstep. And that is tricky because the INST, IN, North South Trade Corridor,
International also INSTC.
yeah, International Trade Corridor. I mean, I forgot the initials.
INSTC, International
And yeah,
North
that I
South
don't
Trade
know. So,
Corridor.
yeah, International North South Trade Corridor, which goes through the port Chabahar and further north. That has also not taken off well, and that's critical to us, like you rightly said. So, how do we navigate these two issues? Is I think a major problem. I'd request if you could address it with other issues in of 2024.
Okay. Now, in my as far as the INSTC is concerned, the the trade volumes are very limited on this corridor. What uh, what we while we have three pairs, as far as my understanding is, are operational now, but our still majority of our trade will go through Bandra Abbas, and we have done that connectivity to the railway lines, etc. We have tried to do that, but uh, I totally concede and I agree with you, sir, is the fact that this will remain a sort of a what I would call a tardy arrangement, not a very good arrangement, but it will be something that will have to be managed. But and here the issue of regional connectivity comes into play. So, and unfortunately, we have a wall on the west in terms of Pakistan. So that is an issue that we'll have to always remain concerned about. Uh, so, so now that and with these little remarks, let me come to our what is the future like. Like I said, I will cover this into three segments of what I call the three circle framework of India's strategic focus. The first circle is our neighborhood. Our neighborhood is defined by two perspectives. We continue to have legacy disputes. We have not resolved them. We try to resolve them, but unfortunately, the situation is that we continue to have a very, very sharp and poor relationship with Pakistan. Our relationship with Pakistan, despite our efforts, asking them to stop cross border terror. We can resolve all issues through discussion, continues. But the proxy war and terrorism has become Pakistan's preferred instruments. And that is why we are continue to hold and deploy forces on line of control and continue to deal with the kind of situation that we are faced with in Srinagar, in the valley as well as in Pir Panjal, something which we can handle, but which is something which is uh, making us invest costs. As far as China is concerned, it's a very tricky issue. China doesn't look at India only as a neighbor. Line of actual control for China is a line to exploit and coerce India. China is conscious of the fact that India is the second largest power in Asia. It is acquiring attributes to be a major player, and over a period of time, along with this partnership with the United States and as a credible partnership with the United States, which is only going to increase in my personal view, particularly because as I see the American influence slightly on the decline in 2024 and remaining, uh, you know, intermittent in because of their other concerns. India's focus is going to rise, and because of that, we'll see a greater pressure from the Chinese. An interesting facet is that towards the end of the year, starting in November to now, the day we are talking, China has engaged all major powers or major players in Asia. It had a summit in San Francisco with the United States. It had on 25th of November in Busan in South Korea. It met with the foreign ministers of Japan and South Korea. On the sidelines, no, on a separate visit by the Australian Prime Minister, they resolved the trade dispute. So, all in all, they have played up with all the allied partners of the United States and try to resolve or downplay their differences. The only element which remains explosive at this point in time is the Philippine situation. And second is us. They have made no attempt to resolve the boundary crisis. What are we saying on boundary? A simple demand from the Chinese is that let us resolve the two outstanding issues. Let us agree to discuss the boundary issue peacefully. Disengagement is imperative for any move forward on our ties. And that simple issue, which the Chinese are aware that they can do it, they are not doing, and instead continue to deploy 50 to 60,000 troops in the harsh winters, taking a large amount of casualties. But they are still not willing to do. So there is a logic behind this, which I will not go into this head because this is not a China-centric seminar discussion. But there is a logic behind it. They have a reason for it. So the question basically today is this: is that from Indian perspective, the two legacy challenges remains in place, and we will have to constantly deal with them through resources, diplomacy, and power play in the coming year and the subsequent years. As far as the rest of the neighborhood is concerned, we have a reasonably good relationship with them, but there again, the relationships are getting distorted to a degree, some by our own actions of not being attentive enough to their needs, and largely on account of inroads being made by China as a part of its peripheral or neighborhood diplomacy. China is trying to woo Nepal, trying to woo Bangladesh, is trying to make inroads into Sri Lanka, and as we are all aware, it is an important player in Myanmar. So all the four important eastern neighbors of India, China has a role to play. Important part of it is that China is also developing capacities and capabilities through Myanmar to securitize, what I call securitize the Bay of Bengal by developing its container terminals, which it has, linking them with the railroad, developing an alternative ports in Chittagong, and also developing the Hambantota port. So, in a sense, and through the Cocoa Islands, it has created a ring of ports, or what I call places, and not yet bases in the Bay of Bengal. But if we are not sensitive enough or we're not careful enough, it will create bases and places into the Bay of Bengal. So that's an issue that we need to be worried about. Then we are also having an issue with the Indian Ocean region with Maldives, something which Maldives may be small. Maldives is sits astride the most important sea lanes of communication. Most of the trade, hugs around Maldives and it goes. So we cannot afford Maldives to become a Chinese colony. So this is something which we need to be concerned about. The next issue is the Indo-Pacific. The Indo-Pacific dynamics are being controlled or are being shaped by the US-China security equations or strategic equations. I will say, from my understanding, is San Francisco summit was just an attempt to ease tensions, but in no way have created a condition for a rapprochement, or let alone rapprochement, or let's say the going away of the intrinsic hostility which the both share amongst themselves. If you want to know, see the readout of the meeting between General Brown and the Chinese new foreign minister. Oh, sorry, the vice chairman of the CMC. You will realize that things are by and large made. It's talk for talks only. The And then now adding to that whole issue is the Taiwan elections and the attitude of the Taiwan and the way the Chinese are trying to push the Americans from not supporting Taiwan, and Americans are bent upon supporting Taiwan, and then large number of cases that are taking place in South China Sea. So essentially speaking, the entire South China Sea and East China are on a cusp of an hostile security environment, are facing a hostile security environment. The question is, what does that do with us? The important thing to note is the consequences of this hostile environment, if it escalates, will be felt by entire Asia, most particularly Southeast Asia, South China Sea, and India, because the trade is going to go from here. So, from Indian perspective, instability in Indo-Pacific is something which India is intrinsic, or sorry, or it is against our interests, and this unfortunately is going to rise. The second element is economics. China has $495 billion trade with ASEAN. Similarly, Japan has $180 billion trade with ASEAN. South Korea is a strong partner. So does Australia have. The important point to note is this: with the kind of economic involvement or economic dependency that has been created between these countries and China, can Japan, Australia, Korea afford to blindly get into any Taiwan contingency in support of the United States? I keep telling my American friends this, that its economy is stupid. In the get, it is economy and technology before comes important factors which we need to take into account. So the important thing to understand is this: is with United States only having less than couple of $100 billion of investment, although trade, their investments are going up, but those are part of the global supply chains. I mean, those investments are okay. But the important point is that ASEAN is in both the maritime ASEAN, which I call the Philippines and Indonesia, and the peninsular ASEAN, are all part and parcel of Chinese economic sphere of influence, and so are Japan, Korea. So to believe that these countries will jump into any Taiwan or a Korean centric contingency in supporting the Americans is something which will have to be thought through. Because I'm reading discourses right now in which there is thinking going on that will Japan, if if Kadena Air Base is attacked by the Chinese, will get into war with China. That's something which has to be thought through. And another element which is also of concern to us is this, at least to me, is the nuclear factor. China is upgrading its nuclear arsenal. Americans are deploying new missile systems, which are all nuclear capable. There are chances that after the abrogation of the arms limitation treaty, sorry, the test ban treaty, I mean, they said they'll abide by it, but it's no longer functional. There is a possibility that China may test weapons. There are some signs which the recent New York Times report said. I don't know whether it's propaganda or what, but at least there are signs that China could do it. So we are looking at multifarious challenges, and added to that is our elections in Indonesia. The sea lines are connect the its own problems. The because of economics region. I mean, the Chinese have recently inaugurated the first fast train in Indonesia. So the point which is to be noticed is this: is that the American have in Indo-Pacific is military oriented have, which is based on America being an offshore power. It is trying to use the leverage its regional allies to contest and contain China. The problem is this: is apart from United States, none of these partners have adequate capacities or capabilities. Added to this, like I mentioned earlier, there's a new element come. In fact, yesterday only a major air exercise took place between the Russians and the Chinese in the Sea of Japan and flying to East China Sea. And these issues are becoming more frequent. And then North Korea is being upgraded through technological inputs by Russia, and 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 as you know, Mr. Kim is a bit of a nutcase, and so he can be expected to do anything. He can be expected to escalate the situation. So we are looking at a very. So how does it all sum up to? There's a trouble on our borders. There's trouble on our flanks. There's trouble in South China Sea, and there's a trouble in East Asia. So this is something which will have to be managed politically, diplomatically, and also by ensuring that we have a credible uh, military capacity and capability, and we do not lose focus on our Atmanirbharta and other elements to ensure that we have an adequate power, including in my I would say it openly that we need to also upgrade our nuclear arsenal and nuclear capabilities. And as far as the global issue is concerned, India is well poised, well positioned. There are, like you said, there is a jealousy missing that we'll overcome slowly and steadily. Basically, the jealousy comes from is that where are the money contracts going? The money contracts, if they come their way, the jealousy will stop. If they go the other way, if Rolls Royce does not get the engine contract, will increase. France has got Rafale deals, so they are easy, and things like that will continue. United States will also measure its relationship with India apart from geopolitical factors in terms of its economic and military engagement. So this is what the story is. I will stop here. And if there are any questions or you want to highlight any issues, welcome.
Right. Thanks a lot, sir. I think you made some very important points. The first point is that let's go to East Asia. You go to East Asia, what you brought out, the Chinese sphere of influence, versus the American sphere of influence. Recently, जब हमने एक, I was sitting in an international discussion. So the thought process there which emerged was that all the Asian nations and the East Asian nations, for their economy, they look at China, and for their security, they look at USA.
Absolutely
That's
correct.
the hedging. That's the hedging which goes on there. So that's how it is, and that's how they'll continue. But the fact which you have mentioned about the increasing jostling which is going on in the South China Sea with Philippines is a new phenomenon. It's a moot point whether China will get into a problem there, which is at its doorstep. But should it get into a shooting match out there by some chance, then मेरा अनुमान ये है कि every country which is involved in the South China Sea dispute will get involved for the simple reason that their islands are all intermixed. So if Philippines goes down, the rest also all go down. So we might see a tinderbox kind of a domino effect going on out there. And if that reaches Taiwan, because after all the Bashi Strait is very close, just about 50 kilometers from Philippines, uh, and Taiwan gets affected, Japan, the southernmost island, Yonaguni, is just about 100 odd kilometers from there. So you are looking at a tinderbox kind of a thing, which a domino effect can go. But then, जो भी वहाँ होगा होगा, our choices as to what we do in those conditions become pertinent. So the difficult question is, when anything happens there, what will our response be? Because that management will be different. And that management has to factor in that West Asia crisis will not go away.
Yes.
वेस्ट एशिया क्राइसिस कहीं नहीं जाएगा. इजराइल हमास वॉर लड़ते रहेंगे, हौतीस फायर करते रहेंगे, ईरान अपना गेम खेलता रहेगा अगले 4-5 महीने के लिए, इसमें दो राय नहीं है. और इसी 4-5 महीने में अगर ईस्ट एशिया में भी कुछ हो गया तो हमारा रवैया क्या होगा is important. Well, we will have to cope with the neighborhood inconsistencies, but the larger thing, हम हमारा strategic choice kya hoga, there's a major issue. And I think we are coming into a major strategic choice regarding our neighborhood policy. ये ठीक है बोलना neighborhood first, neighborhood first, neighborhood first. तो सवाल ये उठता है कि क्या हम neighborhood first कर रहे हैं? अगर कर रहे हैं तो जो भी गतिविधियां हमारे neighborhood में हो रहे हैं वो तो हमारे against जा रहे हैं. The बांग्लादेश से जो हवा आ रहा है वो वर्चुअली एंटी इंडियन है. चाहे वो इलेक्शन कोई जीते या ना जीते, I foresee certain problems there.
Yes.
So isn't a big issue of its own. And me, considering our state of Manipur and where Myanmar is, and the Chinese involvement out there, so there is instability there. So these three countries plus what you look at Pakistan and the pressure which China is putting on Bhutan, we need to have, in my opinion, a very clear-cut policy as to how we have to change our track as far as our neighbors are concerned. So that's another major strategic choice which we have to make. You have to make a strategic choice with your neighborhood. You have to make a strategic choice of balancing your interests between the East Asia crisis, which is going to, which is any time which it might erupt, might not erupt, but the crisis will continue. If it erupts, it's a war. If it doesn't erupt, the tensions will continue. And in the West Asia, anyway, this problem is going to increase. So our problems are going to, go up. The third point which you said is the issue of the nuclear kahani. The nuclear kahani, in my assessment, is that, and having studied the, PLA-RF in quite a detail, notwithstanding the sackings of PLA generals, which is still ongoing. Just today, they have sacked about 9 PLA generals also. And this is today's evening's news. For whatever reason, I still feel their change in their nuclear stance, which they have shifted They've shifted from no first use to something like between no first use and first use, by using launch on
Warning.
demand, launch on warning kind of a posture, with the shifting, with the, unambiguously, and the expansion of the nuclear arsenal. I think 2024 will be a defining year where we'll be forced to take a call कि क्या हम हमारा वही कहानी न्यूक्लियर पॉलिसी चालू रखेंगे या डू वी चेंज, बिकॉज यू डोंट चेंज यू आर इन अ प्रॉब्लम, right? And all this has to ensure that you don't miss out on your economic growth, and this could be hostage during the elections. So these are my views on what you have said. If you want to have a response to this or highlight anything else, we can, and then I'll take questions. So,
No, no, I totally agree with you, sir. I mean, I absolutely. I mean, these are the four areas we have to manage our neighborhood. We are not doing a great job of it. We are going to face regional tensions. We have to find a strategy to deal with them, and there will be a spillover effect, as you rightly said. We have to deal with West Asia. I mean, this is something which we thought we had covered it, and then of course the nuclear issue and the economic growth. Absolutely correct. I mean, there is we cannot sit today. If you want to be a consequential global player, you cannot overlook these things, and you can only deal with these things by developing intrinsic comprehensive national power, and for that there are many things to do. I mean, I was talking to my technology friend the other day. I was telling you. He says what we basically need is the materials, ma- materials engineers. We do not have enough materials engineers. I mean, if we do not have enough materials engineers, you cannot go anywhere. You cannot do any this whole business of semiconductors, etc., all dealing with mineral. I mean, no, basically we need to develop capacities and capabilities in critical areas which sometimes we overlook and we take them. Uh, the difference between China and India, sir, is basically this. Starting from Xi Jinping to almost every leader is an engineer. In our case, majority of the leadership is generalists. So the understanding of technology is just simply not there in our perception. If we say it is somebody else's work, we'll hire people. You cannot hire people. You have to develop people. You have to develop people to do that work. We don't have. Sorry. Thank you. I've finished. Sorry.
yeah, I go with you, sir, but that's a thing which we will tackle, because, like I told you, I was just telling you, और मैं सबको बताना चाहता हूँ, कल से गना शॉट टेक शुरू होने वाला है, हमारा फर्स्ट वीडियो, और वो ऑन आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस हम जारी कर रहे हैं, और ये देखते हैं कहाँ तक हम लेके जा सकते हैं. इनिशियली थोड़ा स्लो होगा, उसके बाद आगे बढ़ेगा. और दूसरी बात मैं बार बार बताता रहूंगा, ये मैंने गाना शॉट में आर्म फोर्सेस वेलफेयर के बारे में भी मैंने शुरू कर दिया. और कृपया जो भी आप देख रहे हो, वो जो वीडियोस हम हर हफ्ता 2 वीडियो हम जारी करेंगे, 2 या 3. कृपया ये जिस फौजी को आप जानते हो उसको बोल दीजिए, दे दीजिए, और उनको बोलो कि प्लीज हैव अ लुक एट इट. एंड उसके साथ साथ, इफ यू डोंट नो अ फौजी, उनके बीवी को दे दीजिए, क्योंकि द फीडबैक आई गॉट कि थैंक्स अ लॉट फॉर द एफर्ट यू आर टेकिंग, all the videos which you see, which you are sending, our husbands might not see, but it is very important for the ladies to see, because wo bhi, they have 50% equity in our lives. So that is something which I'd request you. And lastly, kindly subscribe to Gunner Shot more, and please press the like button, and tell your friends also to come over, because I see 2024 is going to be very critical for India for many reasons, and we'll see how we'll analyze that. Okay.